It's me, Trixie the Golden Witch. It's been about a month and a half since my cousin killed himself by setting himself on fire. When it first happened, I wanted to talk about it immediately, but I was way too emotional. I was ready to just go off. I was ready to be like, fuck everybody who made this possible, you know, like, this is what's wrong with society that drove my cousin to the suicide. And, you know, I don't want to do all that, mostly because that side of the family that cousin comes from, they really don't like having stuff public. They're very private people. They don't want their business talked about and thought about by other people. I'm very image conscious. Now, what none of that side of the family has realized yet is that I'm going to be writing the history of this family. None of them bothered. So whatever my perception of it is what you're going to be left with. And, you know, the only reason I'm preserving the feelings of these people is that if I went off on members of my family, my mom would have to hear about it. And if my mom had to hear about it, I'd have to hear about it. So, you know, once a certain generation has died off and I don't have to hear about it, it'll be a lot easier to talk about. And I'm sure a few of them will be turning in their graves, realizing what their legacy is, because they didn't bother imparting anything positive onto me in their time here. The family historian, the only person with a likelihood of being a footnote in history within this grand tapestry of mine. So, just so happens, my cousin Evan was an owner, a possessor of a Christian Sonichu medallion. I found this out after he died because his mother, my aunt, my mother's sister, came over to assess the value of the things that her son had left behind. She's broke and she's trying to get rid of that shit. Now, when she was trying to get rid of his video games, she, you know, asked my mom if she could assess the value of the games. My mom said, well, send me a picture of all the games. I'll show it to my kids, you know, we'll figure out if anything's valuable. Now, instead, she found somebody who's willing to buy the whole thing off of her for like $500. Like the whole collection, all of his games and consoles. So she just made that deal. So, not exactly the smartest when it comes to selling off possessions of potential value. However, she had no idea what any of the anime toys or anything were worth. So, she shows up with a Christian medallion, an authentic Christian Sonichu personal handcrafted medallion, just like the one Chris wears. And it's like number 36, I think. It's got a number. It's part of a run, a known run. So, we see this, and of course, my brother and I know what it is right away. Victor, I mean. We're like, oh my fucking god. No way. And of course, our first thought is, well, is this worth anything? I mean, Chris is a lolcow. Chris is largely hated by the internet. Is it a good thing in most people's eyes to own Christian memorabilia? But at the same time, I know Ben Saint has thrown money down to own Christian's personal artifacts. I know there are collectors. I know there are people who care. The more the Christian story grows, you know, considering the scale of the documentation, it's hard to imagine that the price wouldn't continue to go up. Now, I went ahead and tweeted a photo of this medallion along with the message. My aunt is trying to determine the value of the things that her son, who killed himself with fire a few weeks ago, left behind. Here's one of them, and it's the Christian medallion. This tweet is going viral right now. It started last night. I went to bed. The tweet had 1.7K impressions, I think, when I made it almost a month ago. It got up to 30K before I went to sleep, and it's up to about 200,000 now. So the tweet is exploding. It's getting constant retweets, constant responses. Everybody's talking about how this thing is obviously a cursed object. It might be a Behelit from Berserk. It may be the Green Goblin mask. A lot of people have suggested. I'm surprised more people haven't compared it to the Dio mask. That was my thought. You know, or Majora's mask, some people have compared it to. A lot of masks. I guess because it is a face. But why is this object considered so cursed, you may be asking? Well, is it the object itself's fault, or is it that the type of people that are drawn to Christian are themselves a cursed people? Is it simply a mark of who you are and where you found yourself in life if you come upon a Christian medallion? You see, I've been skirting around Christian for like 10 years, just kind of aware, but never participating. Christian keeps arriving at my doorstep in various forms. And the forms it tends to arrive in, the people who are the most obsessed with Christian in my life are the people who I have the worst relationships with in my life. Like the people who, for however much I might like them or think I am kind of similar to them, they have the biggest problem with me. Those are the people who are the most obsessed with Christian, which is interesting to me. I'm a trans woman, so I see how that could contribute somehow to the mania. Because Josh Moon, Null from Kiwi Farms, literally left the Dick Show because I made fun of him. I made fun of him in the Dick Show Discord. Riley thought my joke was funnier than Null's joke, so he laughed with me instead of with Null, and Null left. He wasn't kicked, he left. Null has a much bigger vagina than I could ever dream of having. And that is the man who runs the Chris Chan Wiki. That's number one person with a huge problem with me. Number two, why is there a plethora of Chris Chan videos on the internet now? Because an old friend of mine would never shut up about Chris Chan stories, a guy called Ben Saint. Ben Saint kept telling me these random Chris Chan stories, and I wanted more context, so I said we should create a lecture where you stand in front of us like a class. We'll get a bunch of desks. We'll all sit at these desks, and you'll just explain Chris Chan to us. So Ben Saint did that on a stage I paid for and had built by my brother Victor. We filmed the whole thing. You know, we produced this thing for Ben that got over 2 million views. By far the most successful thing either one of us has ever put our hands on is the Ben Saint Chris Chan 101 lecture. First majorly huge video about Chris Chan on YouTube. After that, there became tons and tons of documentaries. Eventually, the Geno Samuel Infinite documentary series, you know. Ben Saint just became one more blip in the mass that was this greater story, bigger than anybody. Chris Chan's story is bigger than any other story on the internet because it's been going since the start of the internet. And it'll be going until Chris Chan is dead. Chris Chan is the center of the internet. Chris Chan is the definitional god of internet culture. Chris Chan is the main character of the story that we are all a part of. If you're on the internet, you are a part of the Chris Chan multiverse. Sorry, that's just the way it is. We're all in her dream. So, the fact that you landed on this video at all means you're already cursed. I'm already cursed, but I knew that. I'm a witch. I work in curses. Curses are my business. I am not afraid of curses. I know how to handle curses. At an arm's length. I can't remember if I touched the medallion. I remember seeing it. I feel like I touched it because I remember thinking it was very light. But I don't know if that's from watching someone else touch it, hearing them say it. I'm fairly certain my brother Victor touched it. And then he had a panic attack smoking weed that same day. Because he doesn't smoke. Shouldn't ever. You know, I think the object, you know, I'm glad I had no inkling to put it on. I honestly wanted to stay away from it. It felt cursed to me, even just knowing that it came from Chris Chan and passed through the hands of my cousin Evan, who then set himself on fire and spent 13 hours dying. I don't know if I'm going the right way to get where I'm trying to go. I'm going the right way, but I didn't expect to be walking like on a highway to get there. Why am I recommended to you? Because I'm telling you the most important story in internet history, and this is a very clear warning. It's fine to be intrigued by Chris Chan, but the closer you get, you play with fire, you will be burned. You're not crazier than her. You cannot do anything that will get you more attention than she has. If you interact, you will be subsumed. You will simply become a part of her narrative. I'm only willing to touch on it from a distance, but I'm letting you know how involved I've been even without really trying. Without even really trying. The mere curiosity. Oh, Ben, please do tell me more about Chris Chan. What if we made a whole lecture about it? 2 million views and an entire industry of Chris Chan documentation later. Chris Chan is way more famous. Way more famous. I wouldn't need to ask Ben to explain Chris Chan to me today. There's tons of explanation. You all know about Chris Chan. So, by the time Chris Chan was fucking their mother, you know, I was aware of who Chris was because Ben had explained Chris to me. Ben had met Chris by this point. You know, they went to BronyCon one year. I wasn't there, so I've never actually met Chris. But one year that everybody else in my group went to BronyCon, probably one of the best episodes of the PCP, definitely my favorite episode that I wasn't on, is the one where they go to BronyCon and meet Chris Chan. The PCP disintegrated almost immediately following this. Almost immediately. My podcast group, we all turned on each other. It got ugly. Very few of us still talking to each other at all. that happened not long after encountering Chris Chan. I'm not blaming Chris. I'm just letting you know. They got close. They hung out with Chris. They mumbled back and forth with her a little bit. They got some photos with her. They did a jolly podcast about how much fun they had. That was the last time the PCP was ever happy together. Ever. And I wasn't even there for that. So, fast forward a few months. Ethan Ralph starts sleeping with my ex-fiance behind my back. She runs off to go be with him. Within that same month, Chris Chan is arrested for fucking their mother. And because Ethan Ralph lived in Richmond at the time, and so did Chris Chan, which is only 2 hours north of me, my ex-fiance and her then boyfriend Ethan Ralph went and filmed the arrest live. Jesse P.S. was there. For some reason, most relevant that guy's ever been in his whole life was that he happened to be there at the Chris Chan arrest, filmed by Ethan Ralph and my ex-fiance. That's how close I got to Chris Chan. And I've never met her. But she's met all of my friends right before they stopped being my friends. She met my ex-fiance right after she stopped being my fiance. In the context of my ex filming her getting wheeled off to jail. Somebody took my tweet about my cousin having killed himself, and they took my name off of it, and they grouped it up with 2 other visuals. You see, the reason this tweet is taking off today is Nick Rakita went to jail. If you missed that story, I live streamed about that yesterday early in the morning as I was breaking that news. And Nick Rakita wore a Sonichu medallion. There's footage of it. And you know who else wore a Sonichu medallion right before their entire fucking life and career changed and everybody started hating them on the internet? iDubbbz. So, people have been showing iDubbbz wearing the medallion next to Nick Rakita wearing the medallion next to my tweet about my cousin, who I'm sure wore the medallion. There's the certificate that was under the medallion is not in the box, which suggests that he had taken it out, you know, probably more than once. Knowing my cousin, who was the most autistic person I've ever met, I don't think he was quite as autistic as Chris Chan, but definitely in the ballpark. Definitely not a person who had any kind of ability to communicate with almost anyone. His life was sad. Evan had a sad life by anyone's description. He was also a Kiwi Farms user. He also grew up on Encyclopedia Dramatica because his parents weren't paying attention to him. He was somebody who would, at age 18, insistently read you fucked up Doug fan fictions that he found on Encyclopedia Dramatica. You know, like, he was the product of the internet cesspool because there was no attention at home at all. Nobody wanted to be around this guy. I am not the least bit surprised that he killed himself. I'm shocked by the way he fucking did it. But I'm not the least bit surprised that he did that. And nobody else was either. Not one single person expressed that they did not understand why he did it. My dad doesn't understand depression or suicide. He says so all the time. He understood why Evan killed himself. And it's not because of the autism. The autism is what allowed his parents to write him off. They never tried. And he was mostly raised by his mother, who is herself just a completely defective person. She currently holds the medallion. I am not... I'm going to tell you, if that thing's cursed, leave it with her. My mom said it'll probably be counteracted. She said the curse will probably be counteracted by the curse that is already there. So, you know, if somebody's got to carry it, it should be the mother of the kid who burned themselves at the stake of Chris Chan. Because Chris really is at the heart of all that. Kiwi Farms was originally the Quickie. It was originally the Christian Weston Chandler Wiki run by Null. Null turned it into a more general lolcow place, completely lost control of it the second it got popular. And, you know, now it's just a laughing stock of the internet. But, you know, the type of person who was there, and I know this because Evan posted about me on there once. He made a post shitting on me, talking all kinds of shit at a time when my career was starting a downturn. So it looked like, I don't know, actually it was really just that Kiwi Farms was kind of new. So he probably was just like, oh, there's a thread on my cousin, I'm gonna fucking talk shit. And then I blew his ass out. I made a whole video talking shit about him and other people, just anybody who was saying shit, anybody who I knew from Kiwi Farms who had talked about me because they had met me in real life, and I knew that they were actually way worse people, like people who I had only spent time with because I felt sorry for them. And so the fact that they would, you know, repay that with talking shit about me online was like, oh, well, wait till they find out about you, buddy. I'd be shocked if that other guy is still alive, actually, because I don't know who's clamoring for more of that. Roger Ramos at $2 says, buy the medallion and destroy it. So here's the thing. My aunt, she wanted to know what it's worth. I tweeted about it. We started looking into it, right? I pretty much figured if I tweet about this thing, whatever the highest offer I get, that's what it's really worth. Like, somebody really will, right now, pay me for this thing. And the top offers I got was $100. Vito started with 50. My brother Victor said 100. Dick Masterson said 100. Victor himself would have been my choice. Like, if the top bid is 100, I would have just sold. I wanted Victor to buy it, you know. It's not in my control. It's in my aunt's control. She has the medallion. She saw the eBay listings, which are all around 500 to 1,000, and decided that that's what it's worth. Now, she didn't look at what it's been purchased for when it's been most recently purchased, which is how you determine the value of something on eBay, not what it's being sold for when it hasn't been fucking bought. But nonetheless, she decided it's worth as much as people are trying to sell it for on eBay. So that's what she's hoping for from it. I don't think she's actually made a listing. I think she decided to hold on to it. Pretty much all of us agreed that it will become worth more in the future. I mean, whenever Chris dies, every piece of Chris memorabilia is going to skyrocket in price. So my best hope is that if she does get desperate and tries to sell it, that she at least lets me and Victor know so we can put together a bid on it, you know, like we will organize money to have it. As Victor said, he wanted it to be an heirloom. He was like, if I fucking have that thing, that's getting passed down through the family, you know, like it can only grow in value. It would probably be a bad idea to outright get rid of it. Maybe my aunt will understand this and she'll just hold on to it, but you have to remember, that's exactly the mentality that every fucking person who died from a cursed object had. You know, you might not believe in curses, but the internet sure fucking does. I'll tell you what, Twitter definitely believes this fucking thing is cursed. It is either a Behelit, it is a Green Goblin mask, it's Majora's mask, it's Dio's mask, it's the One Ring, the number of people who have told me to throw that fucking thing into Mordor. People have told me, don't just destroy it because you might upset the spirit inside of it. You got to get an exorcism. You got to call an old priest and a young priest. You got to fucking get the Boondock Saints, you know, to bodyguard your ritual. Like, it's going to be crazy. No one actually said that last part, but I thought that was funny. So, you know, these Chris medallions, they're killer. They will fuck up your life. Now, I made this song called Broken Brilliance about a decade ago, where I say, you know, when your whole world's gotten too fucking weird, that's when I will appear. I truly do think that if you ever hear about me, if you ever see me in any way, shape, or form, it means you have diverted. Like, you are no longer on the regular path, which is good, but you have to be careful. As a you have to really stay woke as a divergent person. You cannot let yourself be swayed by other divergents who are going to say, oh, you're just like me. No, you're not like them. You're your own thing. But we can all work together because we understand one another, you know? So that's why you're here. You're a little bit touched. You've probably got the autism, but that's fine. It's a spectrum. You're not as autistic as Chris Chan, probably. If you are, you're not going to live very long, but that's okay. You'll be free, like my cousin. I would have set myself on fire too if I dealt with what he dealt with. I'm not skinny enough to go up the way he did. He was like my height and maybe 30 pounds less, and I'm 130 pounds. Like, he's a skinny guy with a caved-in chest. He never had the surgery he was supposed to get to make it so he wasn't, like, caved in. And, you know, whenever a piece of information was revealed to him, he would go, oh. Which is why Vic and Hope do that all the time still. So he was influential in his own way. Basically a personal lolcow to my generation of the family, who is trying our best to deal with, this is a family member, we want to love and care about them, but like, he's making it as hard as possible. I know he's not trying to, and I also know that it's not just the autism, it's also just the way he's raised. And anybody who's not autistic, if they behaved this way, you would think, who the fuck raised you? And I've met autistic people who made me think that in the positive. Like, wow, you're autistic? Who raised you? You're amazing. That was not Evan. You would think your mom lets you say those things? Well, he's autistic. He can't help it. My grandma all growing up, well, he's autistic. He just needs friends. He doesn't need friends. He needs a new fucking parent. His dad basically gave up. Parents split up when they were young, so he got a new wife, had new kids. Tried as hard to pretend he didn't have an autistic son. Sent him to college by himself. That makes sense. You know, he spent most of his time living with his mom. And I'm not going to get into her personal business because I'm not going to start causing problems for her. She's got enough to deal with. Her son died a month and a half ago. But and she's got a Chris Chan medallion on her hands. So if she wants to sell that or hold on to it, you know, I couldn't ask for a better bank within the family, you know, to hold on to something cursed like that. You don't see Chris Chan living more than 10 to 15 years. It's hard to know with Chris because madness can carry you a ways, you know? Like, a lot of just the worst, most degenerate people will last the longest because guilt takes you quicker. Guilt is what will make you drink yourself to death. Guilt is what will make you heroin yourself to death. You know, thinking you can't repair what you've already damaged. That will kill you. Thinking that you are God, that you're the center of the fucking universe and everything revolves around you, that'll keep you alive for a long time. Chris went to prison and back and barely seems affected. My brother Victor saw Chris in Richmond a couple months ago because he was doing work up there at a Sheetz, which is a gas station food store, wearing... I posted a photo of this on Twitter not long after this all happened, so like somewhere in early May. She's wearing like this all yellow like jumpsuit that looks banging. No idea where she got this. It's a cool outfit. She's got like purple hair, all curly and big, and a fucking top of the line Apple Watch on the wrist. The most expensive Apple Watch. So Chris is walking around looking like a fucking SoundCloud rapper, like with a what's the word I'm looking for? When your parents have money and trust fund. Chris is walking around looking like a trust fund fucking SoundCloud rapper, right out of prison for raping her mother. I can't believe people haven't just like, so that's the thing about Chris, right? It's always been like the people who operate against Chris take it as like a moral vengeance where they're like, okay, yeah, Chris is like, we're taking advantage of this person, but this person is awful. And you could ask yourself, like, have they made Chris more awful by playing into the awful aspects, encouraging that awful behavior? And the answer is yes, but at the same time, Chris is always choosing the worst. Like, people are suggesting both. Like, people are suggesting good things. People are suggesting correct actions. Chris refuses those actions. Then people suggest bad actions, and Chris decides to take those. And there's no other lolcow, despite how many autists there are on the internet, despite how many crazy people, despite how compulsive and how attention-seeking everybody is, there's nobody who has been at that exact balance of Chris, of like simultaneously reticent to do anything good, but totally willing to do everything wrong, you know? And on some level, Chris must know what she's doing. She must know. I don't look at that person who's in those threads and with that Apple Watch sitting in that Sheetz with like a faint smile, fresh out of prison, and think, that person doesn't look like they're living their best life. I think, how the fuck do you have money for that Apple Watch, Chris? And the answer is, people are paying for the fucking people are literally buying everything this person goddamn touches because they are internet royalty. It's fucking crazy. But all of those objects are cursed, and everybody who's drawn to them is a cursed person. If somebody's really interested in Chris Chan, you should really seriously think about how important that person is to you. If they're really important, try to wean them off the Chris Chan. And I'm saying this even knowing that a family heirloom might lose value if people demystify or stop caring about Chris Chan. But I'm telling you, the people who are deep in, they see something about themselves that they hate, that they're projecting into Chris. And I think what it is an inability to get away with just acting insane. because everybody's insecure about something. Everybody's insecure about something, and there's some group of people that they struggle with who represents that insecurity. You know, like there are something I see sometimes, you know, my husband Bird, he's 6.5 feet tall. So he's a towering man. And most people love when he's around, just instantly. They're like, oh, thank God, a tall man is here. A tall man to save the day. People treat him like Superman wherever he goes. And he's really amicable, and he's all smiles, and he's always interested in what people have to say. So he makes friends really easily. But sometimes, little ladies, usually late 30s, early 40s, at a level where they've had to deal with some chauvinism, at a level where they think that they've been taken, or, you know, they've been held down by the man. They look at him and they fucking hate him sometimes. It's not often. It's just like every once in a blue moon, there's a woman whose immediate attitude towards him is, oh, a tall man. Fuck you, you know? I never get anything like this. I get ignored. Almost by everybody. Most people are either kind of side-eyeing me like, what the fuck? Or they're like, uh-oh, you know, better not look over there. Don't even want to know what's going on over there. Those are the two reactions I get. With Bird, it's either, oh my God, tall man, or tall man. Oh, looks like I'm gonna have to listen to everything this guy says all day. Uh-oh, the boss is here. You know, like that's the way some people act about it. So I think everybody has that person, somebody that makes you insecure, that you're blaming your problems on, that you look at as like, and it's almost always because they can get away with something you want to be able to get away with and can't. Those women, they want to be bossy. They want to be in charge. They want to be able to command you what to do and where to go. And a tall man, they think can just get away with that all the time. They think people don't even care what he's saying. They'll just do what he says because he's tall. But for me, they won't listen to me unless I'm a cunt. And so they see someone like him and they're like, oh, I'm going to be the most of a cunt to you, you know? So what is it with Chris Chan? What is the allure? Well, the people who make fun of Chris Chan, they're always coming from the same kind of angle. Ben Saint got his start on the internet trolling otherkin. He was part of, like, I don't remember if he was on the Medicare forums, or no, he was on Something Awful. Ben Saint got his start on Something Awful, trolling otherkin. But his method of trolling otherkin was just to parody them, just to do otherkin posting, but using personalities that made the otherkin upset. Basically, he was going in there and saying, you're all acting like you accept crazy bullshit, but you won't accept my crazy bullshit. It's a form of self-othering. It's a way of like saying, oh, you all think you're all just another clique, but I don't belong anywhere. I'm above any sense of belonging. You know, my thoughts are too out there. They can't be justified, actually. You can't come up with a system of logic that reifies my thoughts. And that's why thoughts shouldn't be taken seriously. That's the way someone like Ben Saint acts, the way someone like Null acts. And I think it just comes from not being willing to embrace their own feelings. Where, you know, Ben's a dude who, as soon as he started wearing makeup, realized he loved it. Doesn't identify as trans or anything. I don't think that he is. But it's just a thing where, what was ever holding you back? Why hadn't you considered ever doing this? What made you think you wouldn't like it? You know? Is it that you looked at other people who do makeup in wacky ways and you make assumptions about why they're doing it? And so you think, well, I wouldn't do it for those reasons. But then you do it and you realize you have your own reasons to do it and that it's enjoyable. And suddenly you understand those people. I've watched Ben change his opinion continually over time about what is acceptable, what types of people he can accept. Everyone in the PCP was transphobic when I first joined it. I would even consider myself basically, as much as I loved trans people, I still had a resistance to my own transness. So you know, that was something I had to watch every single person either change their mind about or, you know, have to deal with the fact that everyone else was. So, like, I look at somebody like Null, who was posting about how much he wanted to be a cat boy and his love for twink cat boys when he was like 16 on forum DMs, all of which has been leaked. A guy with a literally broken penis whose one dream is to have kids and a normal family and a wife, who can't even live in America because he thinks he would probably be murdered or something. I don't know. Maybe he's dodging the IRS, or he just can't run his business out of America without his servers getting shut down. Theoretically, I don't know. For whatever reason, he lives in like fucking Serbia and is just a miserable person all day on the internet. That's the guy who, you know, without Null creating Quickie, I don't know that Ben could have found enough information, gotten deep enough into Chris. I mean, I don't know, maybe through something awful. I'm not really sure where it started. I think it started with something awful, like making fun of Chris. And then it branched out, you know, but the Quickie came before Ben's lecture, at the very least. I know he must have referenced it. So between Ben and Null is like the biggest obsessive hate towards Chris. And I'll point out, Geno Samuel doesn't seem to hate Chris Chan. I mean, obviously he doesn't think he's a good person. Like, Chris is a bad person. But like, I don't think the presentation of the documentary is more historical. It's more like, Chris wouldn't be interesting if not for how many people have interacted with Chris, how many people have touched the mythology, how much involvement there has been in this tertiary sense, where someone like me, I've never really even been mentioned in any part of the Chris Chan story, despite, as I've now told, how I've been so close to it so many times, but I kept my distance because I didn't want to be a part of the Chris Chan story. But like, it's hard for me to even imagine staying out of it when my cousin, who's now dead, had this fucking medallion. And I have to look at it and go like, this is a sign. This is a sign that interest or involvement with Chris Chan is a bad road to go down. Like, this is, if you find yourself really intrigued by Chris Chan, maybe make sure you have a therapist on hand, you know, like make sure you're talking to somebody through that. Keep it healthy, you know. Make sure you have friends you talk to about Chris Chan who get it the same way you do. And don't think you're being a little weird about it, you know. Ben had a whole webcomic with Chris. That's true, I forgot. They literally have a shared universe webcomic. I mean, Ben got really involved with Chris because Ben is fascinated with Chris as an artist. And I understand that. I understand, like, looking at Chris as just like one of the more interesting outsider artists of our generation and wanting to work with her on that level. I think after the mom thing, she kind of, like, I don't know how many of you are old TV tropes readers, but there's a TV trope called Moral Event Horizon, which is where a character crosses a threshold of doing something so awful you can never really forgive them. I think Chris fucking their elderly mother, dementia-ridden elderly mother, I think that was a Moral Event Horizon line for most people, myself included. That was when I was like, this isn't really funny anymore. You know, this is just kind of sad and freaky. And it's also why it's so shocking to me to see Chris out in the world rocking a fucking top-of-the-line Apple Watch threaded out at a Sheetz in Richmond, just like living life. And I'm just like, wow, you know, being a lolcow is the same thing as being a celebrity. It's just a new name for an old thing, you know, like, but when you play the game of cows, you moo or you die. And I think that Chris is always gonna moo. Chris is never gonna die unless, you know, unless diabetes or whatever takes her. But again, madness can keep you going. Birds, one of his granddads, I think it was one of his granddads, might have been a great granddad. There was a man in his family who who like lived like 12 years beyond what any doctor thought was plausible, and by the time he died and they autopsied him, they said his brain was basically like pudding. Like it didn't make sense that he was alive. He couldn't possibly be having thoughts. Like just raw spite, you know. My granddad, I live with my granddad, he's 90 years old. He's pretty much just living for the sake of other people keep encouraging him to, you know? He's like, all right, I mean, I'll push it another day, you know? He's only gotten to, you know, my mom didn't know who her real father was until about 6-7 years ago. So I think he's holding out just to get to spend some time with the family he never knew he had for 60 fucking years. But you know, he's holding in. They got nurses coming to the house, you know, trying to get him to move his body, make sure his limbs still work. But all he does is sit and watch television all day. You can barely fucking hear the television. He ain't doing nothing. He's just got tenacity. Every day he talks about how great his life is. My granddad, who sleeps through most of the day and otherwise sits in front of a big TV in a chair and watches Rizzoli and Isles and Major Crimes and fucking Yellowstone and The Mandalorian on repeat all fucking day, every day, will straight up tell you, apropos of nothing, that his life is amazing because people are taking care of him and care about him. That's why he's still alive at 90. Chris Chan gets that within herself. She doesn't need anybody to fucking take. People have been actively trying to fuck up this person's life for decades. Dad's dead. Her mom's got dementia. She's got no support network. And completely believes in herself. Thinks she's fucking God. Chris has so much less self-doubt than any of us. That's why she's at the center of internet culture. That's why people are so jealous that they can't stop fucking talking about her and fucking with her. They're so insecure they can't even go outside, and she's outside in bright yellow. Chris is the least insecure human being on planet Earth. She will live forever. But when she dies, those fucking medallions are going to be worth a lot of money. And so many people will have died beforehand. So many people who have held these medallions will have perished by the time Chris is dead, that the curse will seem vast. It will seem like a network of evil, like a hate virus that somehow has germinated through reality. I'm in a graveyard, if you couldn't tell. Huge graveyard. I've been meaning to do a show here for a while, but today was the day it felt necessary. So if you don't know the whole context, just to repeat it, Chris Chan, creator of Sonichu, wears this medallion, the Sonichu medallion, at all times. If you don't know who Chris Chan is, I don't know how you could have made it to this stream, but she's made a whole bunch of them in like numbered sets, handcrafted to a very specific look, and, you know, given them out by commission over the years. And iDubbbz wore one shortly before his entire career tanked, and he became a weird milk boy. And Nick Rekieta wore one shortly before going to jail on a drug bust, having to pay a $50,000 bail. My brother touched the one that my cousin had and immediately had a panic attack that night, in which he threw up and was just miserable and thought he was gonna die. We thought his fucking heart was gonna fail suddenly all night. And my cousin, who owned the medallion, set himself on fire. If you want to know exactly what happened, that morning, the neighbor's dogs were barking loudly, and it woke him up in a frenzy because he had been so stressed out that he was pulling hairs. He had big bald spots on his head from pulling his own hair out, and he was chain smoking constantly. And his mom was in some kind of dispute with her neighbor. She's basically in like a war with her neighbors over who's the bigger cunt. And the dogs outside started barking, woke him up. He starts arguing with his mom about it because she's mad at them about their dogs, so she's being loud. He can't take it anymore. He locks himself in the bathroom, and a couple minutes later, there's screaming coming from the bathroom. So he opens the door, walks out into the kitchen fully on fire. He was wearing a big, like, flannel shirt, long sleeve, fully on fire. My aunt urges him back into the bathroom to put on the water on the shower. But he's already burnt so badly that the water just takes his skin off. So then she has to turn off the water, leave him in the bathtub till paramedics arrive. Paramedics take him, and he spends about 12 hours dying. Maybe the most awful death I've ever even heard of. Now let me tell you another piece of lore. I told you my cousin was a Kiwi Farms poster. I told you that Null, the leader of Kiwi Farms, quit the Dick Show because of me and Riley making fun of him. What me and Riley making fun of him means is we made a song with 11,000 views called Burning Down the Barns at the Karen Farms, about how we were going to burn down the Karen farmers. My cousin set himself on fire. I don't think he knew about the song. But that's how karma works. I wasn't trying to lose my cousin. I wasn't trying to keep him around very hard, considering the way that he treated me, but I always felt like that guy's weaker than me. He was like literally my age. You know, I felt like I had to protect my family that is weak. But how do I do that? How can you have influence over somebody who's constantly taking influence from someone else that you can't influence? And how do you pull them away without sacrificing your own life, you know, giving up your own happiness to try to work on someone else like a project? Can you even really do it? Can you undo the damage? I couldn't. Hello, transphobes in the comments. We'll go ahead and ban you. Thanks for bringing me back, bringing me back into the moment. I was having a little bit of a sadness dissociation there for a second, but nothing like a little banning transphobes from the chat to bring you back to the internet. I'm not a person who likes to pass around blame about things. I think blame is distributable I like to think of the universe as a superorganism. I think we're all part of one sort of, one grander life. Everything affects everything else directly. And you can try to push against something that's right in front of you, but like, I'll think of it like branches on a tree, right? Actually, this will be a great metaphor. I think I can make sense of this using this tree right here. So, think about these branches, right? That one originates there, that one originates there. But the branches that splinter off from those branches, they touch each other. And sometimes the leaves and stuff, they're right there. But see how those pine leaves are touching those other leaves? Like, if that pine leaf is looking at that other leaf and thinking like, the whole way you're built is fucking up all my shit, and it's fucking up your own shit. If I could just change something about you, but the problem's at the root. The problem's back here. And you out here, you have to walk all the way back here, affect something here, and hope that a change eventually finds its way back out there. That's what it's like to try to affect something, even when it's right next to you. I hope that made sense. The only way Jesus can protect everyone, as you say, Dev Copper, is if everyone finds Jesus in themselves. If you, if you can't find it, you can't protect yourself. You gotta be Jesus. Ain't no Jesus around to be Jesus for you. He's already, passed. Well, I've told my story. The Christian medallions are clearly cursed. They'll probably only go up in value and be more sought after. People are gonna be like, oh, no, I can handle it. Let me be the next one. I'll prove I'm worthy. It won't stop me. It won't kill me. Hubris. Pride cometh before the pride come before the fall. Do you really want to win the Autism Olympics that badly? Come on. You don't want this. This isn't the title. This isn't the title belt you think it is. This is a cursed object. It does not signify anything good about you to have or wear. If anything, it is a clear red flag. So, I would say, don't touch a Christian medallion. Keep away from a Christian. Keep away from anything Christian. Dabble lightly. Know enough to protect yourself. Not enough to become obsessed. Got any good memory of this cousin? Well, he liked Daft Punk a lot as a kid. I remember him jamming out to Daft Punk and thinking that was cool. Eternal suffering with Mad 20. Trans feelings started from childhood or breakup? Definitely from childhood. Pretty much the whole time. It's the kind of thing where the further back I go, the more I'm like, wow, it really goes that far back, huh? But it's because, and I kind of talked about this in there was a stream I did recently called Gender War Double Agent, and I talk about my whole story pretty much. But the gist of it is basically that when I was a kid, up until I was like 5, gender didn't mean anything to me other than the distinguishing feature between myself and my mom. who, to me, there was no meaningful difference between me and my mom other than I'm a boy, she's a girl, and she's old and I'm a kid, you know. But like behaviorally, I was never taught to be different from her in any meaningful way. So to me, all the ways I was were not different from the ways that she was. And when I started being in school, people treated me like I was a girl because I was very effeminate, but it was confusing to me because I didn't see myself as a girl. I saw myself, you know, I just thought, well, like, what makes me a girl? What is innately feminine about the way I act when I am in fact a haver of penis, you know, like. And that's not something you can express to other children your own age in a way they understand. If a girl is accusing you of being a girl because you have long hair, how do you explain to her that you're not? I couldn't figure that out as a kid. So, like, in the early years, I came to really just reject all things girly and be like, no, girl is bad. You know, like, I was so obsessed with creating, you know, distancing myself from the girly image, but I didn't like anything boys like. So, you know, I hated sports, I hated gross things, I didn't like any of the stuff advertised to boys, any of the stuff boys my age were interested in, except for gay boys, who I didn't know were gay at the time. So from my perspective, it was like, well, so some guys are into, you know, Britney Spears and dancing or whatever, and like, those were my gay friends, but I didn't know it yet. So, you know, even back then, I have memories of wishing upon a star to be turned into a girl so that I could be with my best friend, because I just didn't think that gay was like an option, you know? But when I started going through puberty is when things really got shaky, because I really hated all the masculine aspects of my body. I still do, hate having body hair or facial hair. I hated getting tall all of a sudden. I'm only 5'8", but I had been so short. You know, my mom is 5'2" or 3", so like I was expecting to be that tall. I was not expecting to, and it's all in my torso. All of my gained height is in my torso. None of it's in my legs, which is very strange. A very long torso. But yeah, it's like just a sudden growth, and I was like not able to handle that, and I just kind of became a hikikomori for like a decade. You know, just became an anime obsessed, stay-at-home weeb who looks at cute girls and lesbians and wishes I was a cute girl and a lesbian, you know? And I was really afraid of masculinity for a long time. But then eventually I kind of just embraced it. I was like, whatever, I'm stuck with this, so I might as well be this, you know? Like, this is what I've got at my disposal. But like, I never knew how to be, like, there were some people who talked about manliness. I would say like the kinds of men that I respect now are ones who exhibit the traits that I was hoping to emulate when I was like trying to accept myself as a man, being like, okay, well, what is a man? And Yahtzee has this great article once about the difference between macho and manly. We're talking about how, you know, macho guys are like the gears of war, rugged, like big football playing, you know, we're gonna do man stuff. And then like a manly dude is a guy who like takes responsibility and like, you know, is willing to put himself through physical harm to, you know, protect people he cares about, like that kind of thing. And so I was like, okay, if I'm thinking of like manliness as like your chivalry essentially, then I think that's fine. But like, even in that case, I don't feel that way towards women where I'm like, I must protect you. It's like, nah, bitch, you're on your own. You know, you're just another human being to me. There's no different, gender doesn't mean enough to me to feel that kind of way. You know, I feel like protecting the weak, you know, but I'm not that strong. So not all women are necessarily weaker than me, you know. It's not a gender thing. Little twink boys, I want to protect them too, you know. They can't defend themselves. What's a little twink boy gonna do? Like Jeremy the Quartering, what's he gonna do? The guy gets beat up by trans girls. If I wanted to fuck Jeremy the Quartering, there would be nothing he could do. I'm not saying I want to do that. I would only fuck Jeremy the Quartering if he consented, and I would only do him in the mouth or watched. I was thinking earlier, I was cranking it in the shower, thinking about how cool it would be to be getting fucked across the table from Jeremy the Quartering, and he's just giving me that steely-eyed gaze, you know, that hate-filled, like he's just like, because he's always got his eyes like super wide. He's just got the biggest, palest blue eyes, and he's just staring at you with like that fake anger, but he doesn't actually feel anything, so it's just like a vacant, weird look. And he'd be trying to maintain that while he's getting fucked in the ass, like right across the table from me, you know. But he's like, he's feeling good, so he's trying to keep looking angry, but he kind of can't. I had to think about something actually hot before I could come, but it was a fun thought, you know. Jeremy the Quartering, just so unbelievably cum shotable. Like his face, his forehead is like just a come here target. Has anybody told Jeremy the Quartering this yet? Does he know? Does he know that if he lost 50 pounds and shaved his beard, he would pass better than me? Does he realize this? Does he know how laid he would get in the trans community? All right, I gave this rant yesterday. I don't need to be on the Jeremy the Quartering rant every day, or do I? I don't know. You tell me. I don't remember what I was talking about. Was I doing a rant request? We have a rant request. $2 from Nathanatos. That's a clever name. With Nathanatos22 with $2. Are we cursed for watching this stream? Only a little bit. But the good news is that a curse does not have to mean death. Look, everyone's a little bit cursed. At least a curse is a spectrum, just like autism, right? Everyone's somewhat cursed. It's about how you manage your curse. It's about how you look at your curse. You know, I'm a witch. I trade in curse. I have fully embraced my curse. As far as I'm concerned, the curse is what gives me power. I have a symbiotic relationship with what would have been a parasite. You know, like that's how I feel. Like in superpower terms, like in the manga Parasite, or in Astro Baby, which is basically Parasite but newer and cooler. You should read that, it's good. In all those manga where like a guy gets a parasite but then it ends up turning into a superpower because he can talk to it, like D's hand, like Vampire Hunter D's hand, or Moroku, the wind tunnel, you know, it's like a curse but it's also his only power, and like it's supposedly gonna kill him eventually, but he ends up living a long time anyways, because they like eventually, you know, technology changes. Maybe your curse isn't so bad in 20 years. Just stick it out, you know? Stick it out. Figure out how to manage that curse. If the curse kills you before you make it, it's too bad. Your curse actually sucked. Like, only after, like Evan, after he's dead, all of us literally were like, yeah, I mean, his life sucked. Like, you know, none of us felt like we had to be stronger than he did to live a life. You know, none of us felt like, oh, I would never give in to that. Nobody thought that. Every single person understood why he had done it, which is wild. I have never even heard of that. I didn't think psychology was understood on a basic level by enough people, but that's how difficult it seemed to be Evan. Is that nobody thought, oh, I can't imagine why, you know? How am I handling it emotionally? I mean, this happened like a month and a half ago. Again, I feel like on this live stream, I have communicated everything emotionally that I wanted to immediately, but in a much more calm and reflective manner and less destructive. I've been a little bit mean because I think some people deserve some meanness. There are some people who really don't want their dirty laundry aired out, and I don't care enough about their feelings not to air out some of that dirty laundry, you know? But at the same time, I'm not trying to cause problems for my own family, you know, who has recently suffered this big loss. So that's why I waited. I waited until I had like emotionally come down from it, sort of understood it better, And then today, it's really just the fact that my tweet blew up again because of Nick Rekieta's lawsuit, that I felt like, okay, now's the time. Like, if I'm going to talk about it, it's got to be now, you know? While it's still hot enough to be relevant, but cool enough that I'm not, like, you know, fucked up about it. It was rough to learn. I wasn't very close with him. And in fact, like I said earlier in the stream, like we had internet beef, you know, like he talked shit about me on Kiwi Farms, and I made a whole video shitting on him. And that's like the last interaction I had with him. Like, that's the last time I remember having any sort of like even indirect interaction with my cousin, because it probably happened like 4 years ago. You know, before that, when we were both like 19, 20, there was a period where he had come, like, there was a period, a summertime when I was 11, where my family lived with his family. We moved down to Florida. It was his aunt, his older sister, and himself, and they, you know, were like 10 and 12 respectively. And we lived in their house for a while, and it was a really difficult time in everyone's lives. Nobody really had great memories of that period. But my memory of Evan was just like a little kid running around with like no idea what's happening around him. Like, he pretty much spent most of his time running around and just like flailing his arms. Like, his stem was just kind of rotating his whole body and like slapping himself in the chest with his arms all the time. And you know, just like, he always had a habit of like plopping himself down in front of a keyboard and trying to play like the Lion King theme, but he can't, so he's just like repetitively trying to for hours at max volume. So, you know, like, I just knew him as a very autistic person. And then when he was in his late teens, he had gotten so mind poisoned by Encyclopedia Dramatica that he just wouldn't stop saying edgy shit all the time. And he caused conflict with everybody who was around, you know, all of my friends, my cousin, my brothers, you know, everybody. We tried to hang out with him. We tried, and he was like staying in my house for like maybe a month. So he had time to encounter pretty much everybody. And it was just like, man, I want to help you, but you won't stop talking about raping people. Like, you won't stop saying things that everybody is like, hears you say and goes like, dude, you just stop. You can't say these words, you know, like, you're literally making me want to hit you. And like, you know, people are like going away from him to stop themselves from hitting someone they know doesn't deserve to be hit, because it's not his fault, you know. But like, that's the level of, that's how I remember Evan. And from what I understand, he had become a lot more soft. He'd become more like, because this was, you know, last time I saw him was before he went to college. So from what I understand, going through college, he became more like sensitive. I know there was a period he got into Evangelion. I do think he had said something about being gender non-binary at a point. I don't know if he was still, because I only heard that like once fucking 8 years ago. You know, he was kind of a long-haired kid, looked like a hippie, very skinny. There's a beautiful photo of him with his niece, you know, his sister's kid, just looking like a sweet guy who would have loved to have grown up with this niece, you know, or the niece would have loved to have grown up with a big uncle. Now she's gonna grow up with knowing, you know, I mean, she built like a shrine to him afterwards and stuff. It was very sweet. But you know, I never got to meet him in this context where he was sweet or nice. And my dad, the last time he saw him, he said it was like a couple weeks beforehand, and he had tried to talk to him, but his mom just like wouldn't stop and kind of treated him like he was in my dad's way, weirdly. So, you know, but he said when he met him at that time, he had bald spots from pulling his hair out, and he was chain smoking. So, you know, he already seemed like unfathomably stressed out. But yeah, some people it's just really hard to be. And I can't imagine a worse way to go out. But apparently he had been playing with fire. You know, he'd been, I mean, chain smoking, you've got a lighter on you all the time. I got the news at like 10 o'clock at night. Bird had just gone to bed, and my mom was on the phone with one of her sisters who was telling her. And so I go out into the garage, and I was like, well, I couldn't tell what was happening. I could tell that somebody had been badly hurt or something. I couldn't tell what happened from the conversation she was having. But earlier that day, somebody had tweeted about Earl Sweatshirt's Some Rap Songs that, you know, when this album clicks with you, it never leaves rotation. And that album has never really clicked with me. So knowing that I was about to get some kind of tough news, I started listening to it. And about halfway through the album, my mom comes in and gave me the news. And then I could not stop listening to it for the rest of the night. So for me, I'm probably always going to have a mental association of Earl Sweatshirt's Some Rap Songs with my cousin setting himself on fire, of which I have the most vivid mental image because it was described to me so many times. You know, I have a very like The Boys-esque cinematography in my brain for how that must have looked. I don't know, everybody was shook about it, but again, it's like shock but not surprise, you know? Like, nobody thought he was suicidal, he never said so. But it's also like, if anybody was going to be, wouldn't it be the person who, you know, sees no path for themselves, is never being offered a path, is never, you know, is being treated like a burden wherever they are, you know? Well, I'm going to summon all of the energy within me to do this tone shift as best I can. Hey! Like, comment, subscribe! Send those super chats! I'll read all the super chats. Anything you gotta say, I'll say it. I'll read right what you gotta say. You just write exactly what you want me to say. I'll say exactly that right back at you, and then I'll rant about it for minutes on end. You'll never hear the end of my rant. I'll rant for so long, you'll end up here. Dead. You'll die. I'll rant for so fucking long. Pay me. Anyway. That was your tone shift for this stream. Your pathetic whiplash. Dead like my cousin? Yeah, that was the implication. That was the joke. Are you fucking dumb? Grasshopper Plus? Work on yourself. Get a better sense of humor. Better jokes. Hit up the clubs. Talk to funny people. You know, get in the DMs with somebody who makes you laugh. See what they gotta say. You're out of cash, no problem, Latusha. You're a veteran goat of the stream. Nobody who's ever paid me should ever apologize about not being able to pay me, because the second you give me $1, you've surpassed 99.9% of everyone who's ever consumed my content in terms of keeping it alive. Like, consider that I have millions and millions of views. I've got like close to 100 million views on this channel. And I have so little money. I have $170 in the bank, despite millions of views. So if you give me any money, who the fuck is Rakita? Do I want to know even? Gary, you really don't know who Nick Rakita is? All right, well, Nick Rakita is a lawyer who is from Minnesota. He's a Christian family man, a lot of kids, and a smoking hot, cool wife. And he became a fan of The Biggest Problem in the Universe. assume he was a Maddox fan, probably from college or something. He's like 40 or so. So, you know, around the same age as Dick and Maddox and that whole generation of comedy. But he wasn't any kind of internet personality until Maddox sued Dick and the big LOL suit started. And he started streaming, breaking down everything that was wrong with Maddox's completely insane proposal, whatever the fuck you call it, the lawsuit that he filed. And it was really popular. You know, people loved his coverage. The lawsuit lasted a long time, and he started using that to branch out to cover other lawsuits. So when the Vic Mignogna trial started, he was big time on Vic's side, which I wouldn't have been, but, you know, to each their own. But he was big time on Vic Mignogna's side, and got a lot of backing from that, and helped to hook him up with his lawyer and stuff. And then he also got even bigger covering the Johnny Depp trial, which him and Andy Signore from Popcorn Planet both kind of rode to pretty big success. So he's been making millions of dollars doing YouTube live streams and Rumble live streams, because there's certain stuff you can't say. He basically starts on YouTube each night and then goes over to Rumble to have like an edgier stream where he gets really shit-faced and says words he can't say on YouTube. And my opinion of Nick, very smart lawyer, not a really good comedian, kind of a guy who just likes to say edgy stuff and hang out with edgy people. But he's a useful streamer because he does know what he's talking about when it comes to the law. And, like, you know, about the subjects he's an expert in, he's a really good expert to have. So I would describe him as a welcome member of the shitlord community as the resident lawyer. But he overplayed his shitlord card a little bit because he got busted with a bunch of drugs, and him and his wife had they were jailed. I believe they are now home. They paid bail, I assume. It was a $50,000 bail, which is a lot. He was trying to contest that. They did not have it, from what I understand. You know, I'm not completely up to date on this because I've been fucking swamped with Chris Chan medallion messages all morning, because Nick Rikita wore a Chris Chan medallion on stream shortly before his career started spiraling and he found himself in jail. Not unlike iDubbbz, who also wore a Chris Chan medallion shortly before his reputation tanked and he started fucking up his career. And I got Ben Saint to do a Chris Chan lecture mere months before I got into a bad relationship and fucked up my career. And then all of my friends met Chris Chan and stopped being friends with each other. And then my cousin, who owned a Chris Chan medallion, set himself on fire to kill himself. And now the cursed object that he had is currently in the hands of my already cursed aunt, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the safest place it could be right now. But otherwise, God knows how much other Chris Chan memorabilia is fucking boring through people's souls. I think it's like the Dio mask. People have said it's like a Behelit because it brings like instant ruination, or like a reverse Behelit, like it fucks up your life instead of giving you power, it just takes all your powers away. But that makes it not a Behelit. People have compared it to the Goblin mask, Green Goblin mask, or the Majora's mask, because it's like calling you to put it on to go do fuck shit. That's a little more accurate. I'd say that's closer, because people do usually fuck up their own lives. They kill themselves and they do something crazy. But I think it might be even more like the Dio mask, like a perennial evil that will turn you into like a vampire god, you know, or kill you in the process. It'll either drain all your soul out or make you the ultimate bad guy. I don't know. You decide. Why is Chris so cursed? Because Chris is the most schizo-autistic person that the internet has ever found, and the most documented human alive. If you don't know Chris Chan's story, there's literally like 100-part, maybe more than that, like hours, hundreds of hours long parts documentary about Chris's whole life, because all of it's happened online since the age of like 19, and a significant amount of it even before that Chris documented himself, because he released tons and tons of like video. He had access to video cameras from an early age because his dad was involved in tech, so he has always been able to film himself. So like archival Chris footage goes back into early childhood. The crazy parts of Chris's story, like where the name comes from, like he's literally born Christopher Chandler, and then like a fucking a man in a fucking suit, a bunny suit or something, at a mall, like when he was 8, like accidentally called him Christian, and then this caused a revelation from God where he realized the name should be Christian, so they changed the name to Christian. Now it's Christine, by the way, post-transition. So like, just the story is so bizarre from birth to present, and it drew so much attention so quickly. It was in the early internet the weirdest story that existed, and because of the internet it will always be the weirdest story that exists, because the internet has seen to it to keep it that way, and nobody else can catch up. Like, nobody else can live weird enough to be as weird as Chris. It's just not possible. She's got too much of a leg up on everybody else. So it's just like the most weird story you're ever gonna find. But again, like, you can be fascinated with this, you can look into it, but there's an infinite amount of Chris. There's as much Chris content as there is Chris is alive. Like, until Chris dies, every second of Chris's life is content for somebody. And so if you get to that point, you're cooked, you're fucked, you know? Like, I've seen probably 20 episodes of Geno Samuel's documentary. It's kind of the same thing over and over again, you know? Like, it's, yeah, Chris is gonna make a crazy thing is gonna happen, you know? It's great to watch on acid. I don't think I could sit through it normally. You know, if you and some homies want to like really veg out and have a weird psychedelic experience, you know, take some acid, put on Geno Samuel's Christian documentary, and just lose yourself in it for a while. That's a fun night. That's entertaining. I understand that. If you're like keeping up with what Chris is doing every day, if you're like trying to involve Chris Chan in projects, if you're like going to film Chris Chan's arrest, take a step back and realize this will destroy you. This is a vacuum. I'm a void gazer. I literally am a person who spends my time thinking about like how I can think about death harder. I'm like, normal people think about death, I'm gonna think about super death. Like, how do I make people consider like the end of everything instantaneously? You know, like, that's the kind of stuff I'm sitting around thinking about. What's the darkest thought I could have right now? Quick, baby stabber. You know, I wrote baby stabber. I encourage people to listen to Baby Stabber, my audiobook, especially on Halloween. Listen to Baby Stabber. It's really good. It's really funny. Consider that the person who wrote that is telling you, don't stare too long into the Chris Chan abyss. It will fuck you up worse than thinking about stabbing babies. And I still think about stabbing babies, but it's just thoughts. It doesn't have any effect on reality. Chris Chan does. Chris Chan's not just thoughts. Chris Chan, you might be one of Chris Chan's thoughts. And I'm not talking about THOTS, I'm talking about THOUGHTS. Thotes. You could be one of thems. One of those. One of thoughts. English language is so stupid. Thinking about stabbing babies is crazy? You should go listen to Baby Stabber. If you think thinking about stabbing babies is crazy, you are the audience for Baby Stabber. Go listen to it right now. Quick. Jump over there. It's on YouTube. Use the little tab. If you have the center click on your mouse, you know, you just center click and it opens a new tab. So you go over to the word YouTube on the screen and you center click on that YouTube and it'll open that new tab, and then you go type in Baby Stabber. All one word. Baby Stabber. It's only 11 minutes long. And it's an audiobook. It's a slasher. It's a basically like a Jason type character if Jason only stabbed babies. But like got really artful about it also, you know? And by artful, I mean like video game artful, like Dante doing combos artful on baby stabbing, you know? You're not the audience for baby stabbing? You don't think it's crazy to stab babies? Yeah, I mean, if you don't think it's crazy, you'd probably be disappointed. Well, I don't know. Baby stabber, he's presented as sort of a perennial figure, like a sort of like a something that bubbles to the surface every so often, you know? Like you can defeat baby stabber temporarily like Freddy, but he'll always come back. He's a proper slasher villain. I knew somebody who was writing their own sequel of Baby Stabber, but I don't think they ever finished it. There definitely deserves to be more works in the Baby Stabber universe. I left a lot of lore. I left a lot open for continuation. Like the whole 4th chapter is just a lore dump on Baby Stabber, so that anybody could take that character and, like, you know, comfortably run with it. You have daddy issues, maybe it can work out. That might work. Because the whole last chapter is about a squadron of babies doing like an Attack on Titan finale hit on Baby Stabber. And he's like, you know, he's like wiping out babies left and right and shit, like trying to, they're doing the wire fu and all that and like cutting at his neck, you know. Baby Stabber's just like a regular, like, you know, like a Jason-sized man. But from a baby's perspective, he's like, you know, maybe not a titan, but at least a giant, you know? Elmao, excuse me, have you fucking not... Look, when I tell you to go listen to something I wrote, I'm not fucking kidding around. I'm not sitting here like, you have the option, maybe you should do this sometime. No, it's fucking good. I tell you it's good because I think it'll make your life better. I don't recommend stuff that's not perfect. I don't recommend anything that I don't think will literally make you a better person instantly. Go listen to Baby Stabber. You will enjoy your life more afterwards. You'll feel better about everything. From that point forward, everything has to be either better or worse than Baby Stabber. You'll be like, well, that was fucked up, but was that Baby Stabber fucked up? Or you'll be like, you know what? that hurt. But Baby Stabber's cool, you know? I am not even exaggerating, you're right. Baby Stabber will grow whatever part of you you're trying to grow and shrink whatever part of you you're trying to shrink. I'm probably going to do streams in this graveyard a lot more often because this is like the nicest, safest, most open place that there has been no people. I don't know if this is considered like disrespectful or something, but I don't believe in karma or you know, despite the fact that I've been talking about a cursed object and insisting that curses are totally real for like a solid 93 minutes, I don't actually believe in any of that shit. So I'm just gonna keep streaming in a graveyard and talking about my dead cousin and the Chris Chan cursed medallion. I deal in curses. I'm a witch. I know what I'm doing. I don't know if you know what you're doing watching this. You gotta be careful. You know, you might be playing with fire. I'm Golden Witch Fire. I command fire. I have a fire. I sit by a fire every night. I'm not worried about lighting myself on fire because I don't think you could do that so easily unless you were doing it on purpose. By the way, apparently all that was in there was a lighter and a Barbasol can. So I don't know if he used that as an agent or if his shirt just... We did a little test. My dad was like, I don't know how fast clothes can go up, and so we held a lighter up to a towel. It went up pretty quick, so we were like, okay, well, if he was wearing a big flannel shirt, I guess he could have just lit himself on fire and not known how to get it out. It's the most horrible way I've ever heard of anyone dying. It took 13 hours for him to fucking die. He died at midnight. He caught himself on fire at 7 in the morning. That's more than 13 hours. 17 hours. It took him 17 hours. Oh, that sucks so much. I'm sure he didn't, like, feel anything. Because, like, his body would have gone into shock and he would have just been... Maybe he had a fucking 17-hour DMT trip. That sounds awesome. I'd choose to believe that. I choose to believe that Evan had a 17-hour DMT trip after he... I know this is only supposed to last, like, a second or whatever. Ugh. I can't help but think about, like, because there had been self-immolations in the news lately, and, you know, anything... People are not very creative until they're desperate. And when someone's desperate, like, the first thing they hear, they're like, that's the one. You know, so I can't help but think that, like, if you're sitting there thinking, like, I'm fucking done, I'm gonna kill myself. What am I gonna do to kill myself? And then you see, like, that guy who set himself on fire on the president's lawn, talked about on the news all week, and you're like, I'm just fucking set myself on fire. I like fire. That guy went out, you know. They talked about him. I don't know. I don't know what his mindset was. He was very autistic. It's hard to, like, imagine him using regular logic, you know. Like, you know, my good friend Mint Salad, she sometimes has manic episodes. You've seen it on streams if you've watched her streams a lot. You know, or sometimes if she gets desperate, she really freaks out. And it's hard. You have to really talk her down. You know, you really have to, like, work with her. And she's not nearly as autistic as Evan was. Like, she is somebody you can hold a conversation with. She's somebody who understands. You know, if you tell her to stop talking about something, she'll shut up. You know, like, Evan didn't have that. He did not know how. You could tell him to stop 25 times and he'll keep laughing because he thinks it's a joke. Like, at least that's how he was the last time I had seen him. And again, I don't know if this changed. He was like 30 when he died. I had met him when he was like 20 last. So, you know, I didn't know him that well, but... Yeah, I hope that person from yesterday's stream is all right too. You know, if they are, I hope they'll leave a comment like, skibbity booba, I'm a dooba. And we'll all be like, hey, and that'll be that. We can forget it ever happened. I feel like the hardest thing about saying you want to kill yourself is that now you feel like you've put it in everyone's head that, like, that's you. You're, like, person that wants to kill themselves, and now everybody's going to treat you like that, you know? Which probably lays in more because you're like, fuck, well, why am I the only one who's getting treated this way? And it's like, low-key, everybody kind of wants to kill themselves, but most people just aren't talking about it because they think that that's like, well, if you're talking about it, that means you're likely to do it. And I don't think that's true. I think people express themselves differently, but I don't think saying you're going to kill yourself is actually has much correlation at all to actually doing it. I argued on The Biggest Problem when I went on my guest appearance on Biggest Problem in the Universe. I brought in suicide baiting as a problem, or more broadly, saying you're going to kill yourself, because nobody who says it does it, and nobody who does it says it. James Somerton said he was going to kill himself. I said, that motherfucker's alive. He was alive. My cousin Evan never told anybody he was going to kill himself. Not to my knowledge. So, you know, I don't think feeling it and saying it have as much correlation to doing it as people assume. But I do think that if you become the person who's known for the fact that you want to kill yourself, it either becomes like your identity and the only way you know how to live, or like eventually you become sad and you stop talking about it because you don't want to make other people upset, and then you silently kill yourself. But only after you've stopped talking about it. So it's a treacherous thing. It's a treacherous thing. This is my armchair psychology, by the way. This is not me coming from this as like a professional giving advice on how to treat people. I'm just saying, to me, saying that you want to kill yourself is kind of a manipulative behavior, but not a bad one necessarily. But if you let it become a routine, like if that's the way that you get what you want is by saying that you're going to kill yourself, then you're just a piece of shit, you know? Like at that point, and I've known people like that. I've known people who have weaponized their own suicide ideations to be like, you know, well, I don't like the way this argument's going, so I'm gonna kill myself. And I'm like, fucking do it, you know? But I don't think anybody who watches my show should die. And you could say that's self-serving, and you're right. I love my audience, and I want them around. I want a growing power base. I don't want any weakness in my base. I want the people around me, the people who admire me, to be strong in the face of adversity, and to keep going, keep walking. Walking's important. Not enough people walk. You can walk and watch these videos if I can walk and make these videos. You know, I'm literally holding up a tripod the whole time. Consider the arm strain. I've been going 100 minutes holding this fucking thing. You could definitely walk. Gary always at $2. Was he a Homestuck fan? Barbasol is a reference. Possibly. I doubt he was making a Homestuck reference. It's funny because my brother Victor, his immediate thought was that it could have been a King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard reference because they have a song about self-immolation. I have never known that. I don't know that Evan ever listened to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Like, in terms of things I know he was a fan of, as a kid, I know he was really into Daft Punk. I know he was into Evangelion in his teens because he always had like a Shinji avatar. And he was really into Encyclopedia Dramatica and Kiwi Farms and internet horse shit, you know? He was a brony when the bronies were happening. But, you know, just like anything an autistic person on the internet would like, I guess, is what Evan was about. But I don't think he was making, like, deep-tier references in his suicide. I think he was just stressed out. Evangelion did ruin a lot of people. How old was he? I think he was like 6 months younger than me or something like that. So 33. Because I had thought he was 30, but then I was told he was like closer to my own age. I know he's in between me and Victor. Victor's a year and a half younger than me. So somewhere between that. He's like 6 to 9 months younger than me or something like that. I'm not 33 yet. I keep saying that. I've been self-identifying as 33 for like 8 months, and I don't even turn 33 until August. I just like the number, okay? It's a Coheed and Cambria song, so that's probably why it's in my head. I spend my entire year of being 33 listening to 33 on repeat. It's not what you have learned, but what they said about you under your shirt. You know they never will make sense of what you gave them. And now it's all downhill from here. Patrick, short flip, and outside boundary lines. I'm running you down. Ooh yeah, well nothing looks right from up but here inside out. I'm still unclear about the things you might have said. Good ass song. Exact age doesn't matter once you're in your 30s, it's true. And once you're, you know, Dick famously when he turned 40, he was like, after all that you hear at that point is the fuzz sound, and the rest of it's just, well, how old are you? That's all they hear. on the last night's stream, I redid my favorite albums list again. I made it I just did 49 and I limited it one per band because chances are if I like the band, I probably like more than one of their albums. And like, it just becomes messy trying to make a top 100 and, you know, there's always a few things that it's just like, I kind of included it because I have space for it. So I wanted to be a little more cutthroat. So I made it a top 49. I did not put them in any order. I just did them as I thought of them, and then kind of checked through my old chart to make sure I didn't forget anything too important. But yeah, it's you can watch me make it in the video, but the finished product is also on Twitter. I should probably post it in the Discord, the We Watch Anime Discord, which is accessible on the We Watch Anime channel for those who don't know. I don't know how many people realize I have a Discord because we very rarely get new members, but it is heavily moderated by Ellen, who's right here in the chat. She will fuck you up if you post. Also, Bird. Bird will also fuck you up. Bird will fuck you up just because he don't like you. You know, people will come into my chat sometimes. They come onto my channel. They're thinking, Trixie's all fun and games. I can say whatever I want. Not when the husband's around. He'll come in just block, 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 bam, 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 block, 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 fuck all y'all, fuck all y'all, fuck all y'all. He'll start arguing with you. He'll be like, you're just annoying. I don't like you. Like, can I scare this? He'll ask me permission sometimes. Like, can I scare this guy out of your audience? And I'll be like, yeah, by all means, you know. I don't want to fuck with that guy. No Deer Hunter on the list? No, not this time. I haven't really been listening to them. Thing about the Deer Hunter that's always been a little bit difficult with me is that I think Casey's vocals improved tremendously by the time of like the 4th album. I think the 4th album has by far the best performances from him as a singer. And that the first 3 albums have a bunch of songs that I really love, but I love singing them more than I love hearing him sing them. And even when I first got into the Deer Hunter, I remember Victor telling me like he couldn't listen to the songs without me singing over them because he couldn't stand his voice. I was never at that level, but I've had a decade to practice these songs and get really good at them. He didn't have that when he wrote them, so it's not his fault that he sounds a little shitty singing these songs and maybe wasn't as good of a vocalist yet as he could have been. But it's kind of like I enjoy preserving the memory of it more than I enjoy actually listening to their albums, unless I'm singing over it the whole time. Like, I can have a great time literally playing acts 1 through 4 in a row and just singing over it the whole time, you know? But also, I feel like, you know, Act 4, even though it's the best sounding one, it's also where it starts to get a little bit shaky, where I don't love every song. There's only a few that I really love. Night on the Town, I adore. You know, I like the Squeaky Wheel. Or no, that's from the other album. There's something with a similar name on that album. Anyway, King of Swords Reverse, that's a fun song. Didn't like their 5th album at all. But out of the first 3, just no one of them is quite powerful enough to crack the list on its own. If it was like acts 1 through 4 as a playlist that I'm going to listen to on a long car drive. Now, the other thing is Bird doesn't like it at all. So I'm not going to get the opportunity to spend several hours singing the Deer Hunter with Bird in the car. He's going to be like, fucking please blow my brains out. I don't want to hear this anymore. So, so it would have to be something I was going to go do by myself. And frankly, I've done it enough times. I've spent enough of my life listening to the Deer Hunter. You know, I've gotten my fill. It's all in my brain. I can just, anytime I want, you know. Believe you me, the price is clear. A child born, the mother near. To death and life as hand in hand. A failed light exposed the man who led her off into the flame to cast her back to hell again. But hear ye me, the break of dawn, will wash away the sins thereof into the lake beyond the tree. The child waits, alone is he. The flame is gone, the fire remains. 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 That's a fun song to sing in a graveyard. I'm glad I got the opportunity. Get a VTube avatar and make mad money with karaoke streams. I don't know. I'll do more singing on here, and if people keep telling me they like it, I'm very self-conscious about my singing. If I started doing it and only like 3 people liked it and they just seemed like they were being nice, it would be too much for me to handle. So I need to be I need to be properly pampered and convinced I'm great. I don't know if that's gonna happen because I don't know if I'm even good. Why you leave May? She was hot? Not really. Have you seen Bird? Come on. Also, I didn't. That was her. I just stood there and let it happen. Oh, all right. Well, that's how you truly feel about it then. Well, all right. Well, okay. That's how you truly feel about it then. It's an Earl Sweatshirt reference, if anybody doesn't get it. From Doris. I don't remember what song. Well, all right. Well, okay. Thank you for the compliments, the Schizo Prophet. I'm not hydrated, I would say, to the extent that I drink a Diet Cola, a Diet Mount Summit, or whatever the fuck the Aldi brand is called, since being here. Though my throat does feel a little bit rough, especially because I keep hitting this vape, and I've been talking for 2 hours. But overall, I was pretty satisfied with that performance, so I wouldn't say that was like low grade for me or anything. That was on the higher end of what I think I'm capable of. So, you know. Although walking at the same time does kind of make it a little more difficult to like squeeze the diaphragm exactly. I sound pretentious as shit talking about this right now. You like my girl voice singing better than my man voice? I mostly sing songs that are from guys with high-pitched voices. I don't actually do a lot of girl voice singing outright because a lot of girl singers tend to sing in their low register. And if I'm trying to sing the same notes that they are, I'm going into my high register and it doesn't have the same feel. It's the same notes, but you can tell I'm going up and they're going down. And if I'm singing a male singer who's already got a high-pitched voice, I can make that sound even more effeminate because they're going to the top of their range and I can go higher, you know. Unless we're talking about Anthony Green, I cannot go as high as Anthony Green. I can't wait to understand the Wait, I can do it, but I just have to be really loud. Which means I have to keep the camera a little farther away so it's not blowing you out. But, you know, Anthony Green from Circus Survive or The Sound of Animals Fighting. I was chasing suns across a circular path. Take it for all of this is how I feel when I'm all alone. Like that. Epic emo vocal. Both eyes open wide again. No idea what he's saying when he screams that. Any Sound of Animals Fighting fans in the building? Anybody know what I'm talking about here? Circus Survive fans? Trying to think of like what's the most popular song. 7 years. That was with I don't even remember what that fucking band is called. Very influential screamo vocalist. Post-hardcore vocalist. Did I used to sing along to MSI? I always be singing along to MSI. I can't wait for you to knock me up in a minute, in a fucking minute. I can't wait for you to shut me up and make me hip like badass. If anybody wants a karaoke request, just super chat me a karaoke request. I'll go for it. You know what I like. I've got my favorite albums chart right there. So if you know any song by any of those bands, I probably know it. I will gladly do karaoke requests. Seosin, thank you, Anonymous. 7 years. That's all I know. It's the only Seosin lyric I know. I've heard that EP a few times, but I caught on to it very late. But I'm a huge Sound of Animals Fighting fan. Gary always with $5. MSI Panty Shot karaoke. You would pick the worst, lyrically worst song I could possibly sing on a live broadcast. The worst choice. Panty Shot. This was the song. So, you know, when I was in high school, late high school, I became a big MSI fan when I entered my edgy phase finally, a little bit later than most people. You know, I got a little edgy. I started listening to MSI, and my friend Marcus and I were big MSI fans. We used to cover MSI all the time. If you listen to really old Trial of the Golden Witch albums, you know, we have like a Bullshit cover and a Clarissa cover, where he was playing acoustic guitar and I'm singing the lyrics. So, you know, big MSI fans. I think both of us independently have seen them live. And then we found out about the allegations that, you know, Jimmy had done a bunch of sexual misconduct in his early 20s towards maybe underage girls. Now, I don't know all the details. I don't know all the laws in the places he lives. I don't know what was really going on. I don't know if anybody would be too surprised that their relationship with Jimmy Urine was going to be fucking weird and freaky. But nonetheless, the allegations wouldn't be troubling if he didn't write songs like Panty Shot. 5-year-old penny shot, I can see between the legs. 5-year-old penny shot, oh, yeah. What? Penny shot, can't complain. I didn't even touch you, so I can't be blamed. 5-year-old penny shot in my brain. My life has meaning when she spreads her legs. 5-year-old penny shot. Because I'm a don't waste it like I'm John Wayne Casey in the rock. There's your Panty Shot performance. Oh wait, down in my evil ways. Oh yes, I'm down in my evil. What? It's a fun song. It's fun to sing, but it's not fun to think about. I can do that without drugs. except for this one. Vocals, only this feels like I'm listening to Korn. Yeah. Something takes a part of me. You know what? That wasn't paid for, so that's as much as you get. That's a preview. What's my diet like, losing all that weight? Don't eat a lot. Typically I'll kind of just snack. I actually wrote a whole article about it. You know what? Go to my Substack. It's a free article called Eating 8 Times a Day and Losing Weight. But basically, the average person just going about your day, if you have like a standard job, you'll use about 2,000 calories in a day. So if you just eat fewer than 2,000 calories in a day, your body is going to use some of that fat or some of those calories that it has stored up in order to hit that 2,000 calories. Like, you're still going to use 2,000 whether or not you consume 2,000. So unless you don't do anything. And if you're feeling like anemic, or you can't, you know, if you don't eat enough, you can get yourself into a position of like, oh, I don't have the energy, I can't do anything. That will not happen to you if you are big and fat. You can actually just stop eating and let your body eat your fat for like a month. It's not the healthiest way to do it, but you can do it. You know, just drink lots of water and keep flushing it all out. Yeah, so basically, I just eat light. There's lots of snacks that are under 100 calories, like cheese sticks, or, you know, like a handful of chips, or, you know, or if you, I mean, sometimes I'll eat like a shitload of salty snacks all day, but that's pretty much most of what I eat, you know, like one meal and like a whole lot of chips. Salt is generally keeps your energy up, you know, little bits of sugar, but people consume sugar for taste, and that's the biggest problem with food, is like too many people associate sugar with taste good, because sugar gives you like a dopamine hit. But like, there's a lot of other ways for things to taste good, and if you have a taste for things, if you have an appreciation for those things, you'll get the dopamine from experiencing something familiar, as opposed to from it being instantly lovable, you know? So that's why it's important to shape your taste. This goes for everything. This goes even for media. This goes for absolutely everything. Shaping your taste, you know, creating a love for good things inside of you will protect you long term. Nobody is born loving to exercise. You teach yourself to do it because it makes you feel good, you know? Nobody is born loving to eat well. It's about the mental dynamic. If you know, for me, if I like bite into a candy bar, I immediately know that this is like overboard. Like, this is like the synapses are going crazy, you know? So that needs to be something that has a reward. Like, if that's something I eat every day, it has no meaning. It becomes the standard. It becomes expected, and it becomes hard to live up to without obtaining it every single day. If it's something that you deliberately save for when you feel like you deserve it, you'll develop a feeling of undeserving when you consume it when you know you don't deserve it. You know, you'll feel like, oh, this is too rich. Like, this is just gonna make me fat. Like, oh no, my brain's not supposed to feel this good, like today, you know, midday on a Tuesday. This isn't the time for these feelings, you know? It's about postponing gratification, deciding for yourself that you will be happier in the long run because you didn't try to make yourself happier right away. But, good fucking luck. Now, granted, you can also just create, like you can get stuff that's like for me, you know, doing these streams, I get the dopamine of like walking, exercise, like feeling good, you know, the body pump is nice. I get attention from the internet. If I want to read something somebody says, it's always there at my fingertips, and people are paying me. So this is kind of like addicting in and of itself. I could easily see myself getting totally lost and doing these live streams all the time, but When I don't make money, it makes me upset. It makes me want to stop. It makes me think I'm wasting my time. Right now, I'm not making any money, so I'm upset. I feel like I'm wasting my time. Where's my money? Where are all my super chat requests or my karaoke requests? Am I just walking around this graveyard sweating my ass off for nothing? Fucking like a junkie in heat, whatever that means. Mixing my metaphors. Outro by clipping, yeah, get money, get money, get money, get money, get money, get money. I did recently make myself a new money playlist out of just songs that say money, and I forgot to put that in it, but now I'm going to for sure. It's got songs like Money and Whales, for which the chorus is money, 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 money. Money on my motherfucking mind. Cop 10 hiccups at the same time. I kind of have to pee. I was hoping I would find a bathroom somewhere at this facility, but I think I'd have to go into like a main building or an office, and I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to draw that kind of attention. You know, I've gotten away with just wandering around this graveyard for hours with nobody caring or noticing at all. Nobody else is here, except for like the occasional groundskeeper. They're off doing their own thing. This place is unbelievably massive. I have not just been walking around in like a circle. Like I'm sure I've crossed through a few of the same paths, but I've been pretty lost for a while in this big graveyard. It's bigger than the forest I usually walk around in, like substantially bigger than the forest I usually walk around in. Look at the size of this fucking grave. Like, it's like the Washington Monument just in the middle of this fucking graveyard. It's crazy. Magic X $1 million. I mean, if you pay me, I'll sing it. But I'm only taking paid karaoke requests here. This is a jukebox, you know. You gotta put your quarter in. I didn't even give a full performance to Gary Always, but that's because he picked a song I did not want to be caught singing, but did want to prove I could sing. I mean, a real paradox there. These graves are so fucking huge. Evan's like in a box. He's not in a grave. Obviously, he was already mostly burned, so they just burned him the rest of the way. And I think each of his parents got half of his ashes or something like that. So sometimes in the divorce, the parents each get half of the kid. Let that fucking sit in your cranium for a second. I've kind of forgotten about that. I hadn't really given it much thought, but what the fuck? Like, they couldn't do that when he was alive. Sure makes it a lot easier to fucking share him, doesn't it? Jesus Christ. That is so dark. Is there anything I wouldn't do for $1 million? Most things I would not do for $1 million, I don't think. I'm not desperate for $1 million. I want your money. I want you who's watching this. I don't want some fictional fucking made up $1 million you're dreaming about. That doesn't exist. It is up to each and every person watching me to make me rich. It's your job. Nobody else can do it. Unless you can find someone who can do it. You got to go out into the world and drag people into my stream and say, this is more interesting than whatever you're doing. If you're worried that it's too complicated and you can't explain it, just send them to the stream and say, this person's new, explain, and I'll do it right there on the stream. I'll induct every single member to this fucking cult myself. I just need the dividends. I need the money so I can control the world. I can rule the world from my mama's house. I can rule the world from my mama's house, as bus driver said. I can do it, but only with your help. Just like Joe Biden. You know, I can rule the world from my mama's house, but I just need to email you constantly about money. Because we're all in this together. That's what the government told me. I gotta figure out how the fuck to get out of this graveyard. I would be on my way home to end the stream right now. I gotta figure out where the fuck I am. I'm gonna bring up the map. Okay. Well, I'll probably end this stream soon and start a new one back at home. I should have the office available to me today. So I'm gonna do a stream where I maybe bring on some guests, do a little more party atmosphere, you know, throw on some videos, maybe throw on some music, you know, indulge. I can't really sell you anything right now. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I got nothing to talk about. I already finished telling the story. You know, people are now probably going to show up to the live stream and be like, this isn't even about Chris Chan's medallions. I don't give a fuck at all. And then they're going to leave. But, Trixie, that graveyard's been closed for 50 years. That would be wild. Get it in within the next couple hours. I'm headed towards the entrance. And as soon as I leave this place, I'm turning on the stream. So that's all the time you got. Party Rock is in the house tonight indeed. Am I gonna watch Medicare tonight? He's streaming about Insecurity. Probably not. I don't usually watch Medicare. He fucking smile talks too hard. You know, like, at least with Carl, he's offset. Carl from WATP, he's offset by having guests, you know. He's got like normal people who talk normal. And it's not just, what are we talking about? Over and over again. But with Medicare, it's just like, and then, like he's a person who manages to not very often laugh, but always sound like he is laughing. And I don't know, it's annoying. It's like, bro, just like talk, just say a sentence, you know. Well, before everybody takes off and the stream ends, I'll just remind you all that Jeremy the Quartering has the most fuckable face I've ever seen. If you look at him right now and imagine what it would look like for him to be looking up at you from your waistline, you will understand. Those beautiful blue eyes they're truly unlike anything I've ever seen. I've never seen somebody with a fierceness in their expression that says, like, you can fuck me as hard as you want, and I'll fucking, I won't even stop glaring at you. Like, you know, something about that. His twink energy is off the rails. Like, if he lost that weight and just embraced twink life or went trans, I think he'd have like Dimitri Martin levels of like thirst after him, you know, of like just commanding thirst all day long. It's all it would take. So people, just let Jeremy the Quartering know. It's time to transition. All right, see you later, everybody.